We're going to go to that breaking news now on the coronavirus emergency. A second wave of the virus sweeping through Europe, and the British government just announced it will back what is known as a challenge trial, intentionally exposing volunteers to the virus. It's a controversial approach regulators will need to approve, and Ian Pennell is in London with the latest. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, George, good morning. Volunteering to be deliberately injected with coronavirus may sound crazy, but some also think this is the best way of testing some of those vaccines currently being developed, and a group of volunteers here in Britain is now stepping forward to do just that. And in the last couple of hours, the British government said it's going to sponsor these trials.
This morning, Britain giving the green light to highly controversial vaccine testing that'll deliberately expose people to coronavirus. These so-called challenge trials, which will be the first of their kind to be authorised in the world if regulators give the go-ahead, will take healthy young volunteers, inject them with a vaccine, then days later they'll inhale a specially manufactured dose of the virus. The first step of the process announced today, using a small group of 18 to 30-year-olds to establish the dose of the virus to be used in the trials. They'll then be closely monitored in a quarantine ward at a London hospital.
It is entirely possible, actually, that the subject will not even have any disease symptoms. So we're looking to induce infection, but not necessarily looking to induce disease.
In typical vaccine trials, doctors don't intentionally expose volunteers to the virus, especially a deadly one with few proven treatments. The doctors who'll run this project, due to start next year, telling ABC News that everything will be done to minimise the risks.
And challenge studies have a key advantage of the fact that you can determine vaccine efficacy very, very quickly. Challenge studies we're able to conduct safely and all year round, irrespective of how much virus is going on in the community.
COVID-19's claimed the lives of more than 1 million people worldwide. Despite widespread efforts to control it, a second wave is currently sweeping across Europe. Here, in an ICU in Lyon, France, numbers of infections are steadily increasing, causing doctors to be concerned and request more beds. Some brave young volunteers are stepping up to be given the virus so new vaccines can be tested.
Why did you decide to take part in this test that, in theory, could kill you?
I'm totally convinced that the challenge trials, are going to save thousands of lives, billions of pounds. And if I didn't do something and I wasn't advocating for challenge trials, I'd regret it. How
do your parents feel about what you're doing?
No parent wants their kid to be exposed to coronavirus, but they understand why I'm doing it, and they're very supportive.
But challenge trials aren't met with unanimous approval from the medical community, with some saying they cross an ethical line.
The history of challenge trials has not only been kind of controversial, but in some places downright totally unethical. That's where we're making sure that that's not the case with these challenge trials. They're going to be probably ethical. Volunteers will know exactly what they're consenting to.
Well, fascinating and certainly controversial. Now, we don't know which of the many vaccines currently being developed in the States, here in Britain and around the world will actually be put to the test. But we do know that all being well, they should get those trials underway at some point in the new year. George.
Okay, Ian, thanks very much. Let's bring back Dr. Ashish Jha, the Dean of the Brown University School of Public Health. Thanks for coming back again this morning, Dr. Jha. So where do you stand on the ethics of these challenge trials?
Good morning, George. Thanks for having me on. Again, obviously ethically difficult situation. I do think it can be done in an ethical way with good consent, good care for people who are infected. The real question in my mind is this even necessary? And there, I'm far more skeptical than I am on the ethics of this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about, because we've got so many vaccine trials going on. It does lead you to question whether or not these challenge trials are necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, so challenge trials are really helpful when there is very little disease in the community and you need to try to get to an answer quickly. I believe we are weeks, at most a couple of months away from having answers about the first generation of vaccines. And so there really isn't a need in my mind. And of course, we don't know the long-term consequences of this virus, even in young, healthy people. And of course, finally, even if it turns out that you do these trials, you won't know whether the effects will be the same in kids or in the elderly. So there's a lot of questions that these trials won't answer. And again, I'm just not seeing the need for it right now.
So you say we're weeks or months away from knowing whether a vaccine is going to be safe and effective. Does that mean that these pauses we've seen in the trials don't give you much pause?
So a couple of the trials have paused, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, but Pfizer's cooking along and Moderna is also doing well. And I suspect some of these pauses will eventually resume. And there are a whole other generation of vaccines that are right behind them. So obviously I don't know the exact date and which vaccine will make it, but I'm pretty confident that by the end of the year, we'll have at least 1 or 2 vaccines that have cleared the FDA hurdles.
But right now it seems like we have a significant problem with public opinion. Americans not confident in the vaccine, even if it comes.
Absolutely. This is really probably the most important issue in front of us. The science on the vaccine development so far has been terrific. It's been done with integrity, but there's been so much politicization about timelines, and I think it's created a lot of distrust. So we have to do a very good job of both following the science and making sure the vaccines really are safe, but then communicating that to the American people in a way that will build the confidence that people need.
Dr. Jha, thanks for joining us again this morning.
Thanks, George.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.